Hello and welcome. My name is Rebecca Valbuena, and I'm here today to share a mini webinar with you called Bridging the Divide, Distance Learning Lessons. And this is sponsored by the CLIC project from the state of California. CLIC is an acronym standing for Content, Literacy, Inquiry, and Civics, and that is the descriptor of our state framework. So as we go to implement our framework and we move into distance learning, we thought it would be really wonderful to share some model lessons with our teachers across the state. So we have for you sample lessons for history, social science, K-12. They are standards based, but they don't encompass an entire curriculum. They're intended to be sort of model lessons for you to see what inquiry instruction in social studies would look like in a distance learning format that also blends really nicely into hybrid instruction when we move back and forth between the two in the coming year. Hopefully that ends soon, but for now, we are all making the best of this distance learning time in our lives, and we want to make sure that our students get quality history, social science. So we are showcasing one lesson today, and I'm sharing a lesson today with you called Together We Learn. It's a kindergarten lesson, and it focuses on the standard that talks primarily about being a good citizen and what it means to be a good citizen and how good citizens act in certain ways. So this lesson is something kindergartners need in the beginning of the year, but also throughout the year. So I hope that it will be beneficial to you in terms of content, but especially in format. Showcasing this lesson, the idea is that you will see some of the structure and format and the types of activities that can help engage kindergartners in a distance learning format. Please feel free to make a copy of the lesson and use it as is, or use it as an idea seed, adjust it, create it, other lessons, and add to it. But the idea is that it will just give you that little boost of confidence and a little bit of help and guidance in terms of giving your students optimized distance learning activities for social studies. So as we go on, I want to share with you that we use the same format in all of the lessons. We use the 5E format. If you haven't heard that, I'll review it with you briefly. But this format is used throughout all of the lesson plans K-12. And it aligns with the format that I'll share with you right here on this HyperDoc. So the 5 E's stand for, as it loads, give it a second. The first E stands for engage. And, you know, these are things that we do in the classroom anyway. It's the idea that we get our students ready to learn with that first E. We tap and build background knowledge, we cultivate curiosity, and we get them ready to learn. Now, in this model lesson, for each of the 5 E's, there is a synchronous class time and a bunch of ideas for synchronous class time. And then there are ideas for asynchronous class time. So there's synchronous, asynchronous for each of the 5 E's to help you see how you can engage your students in live instruction, but also how they can engage when they're on their own in an asynchronous format. The second E is explore. And explore, obviously, is just what it means. These are the learning experiences. So this is like where the meat of the lesson is. We let them explore and learn their new concepts, skills, and processes. That third E, explain. This is when students synthesize new knowledge. They might ask questions. They seek clarification. And really in this part of the lesson, we're hoping that it boosts their understanding. So they really can tell you and explain what they've learned. The elaborate part of the lesson is where students apply what they've learned, and they develop a deeper understanding throughout the lesson activities. We hope that they can create and investigate further, and that this part of the lesson really cements their knowledge. The last E stands for evaluate. And throughout each of the sections, there's a place for formative and summative assessment. So throughout the 4 E's prior, there are ideas for, when can you look at your students and observe and monitor and adjust what you're teaching. So in the what are the inclusions in the lesson that are formative assessment? And then at the end, there's a summative piece. And usually it's a writing piece or a project or something where you will be able to see if your students have mastered the content. As we head back into that, the format, we hope that's easy to follow for teachers, of course, and that if you would like further information about the 5E format, you can hit this link as you go through the slides, and it will share with you some more information on the 5E format. So it's really something we found to be effective with distance learning. It originally was designed for science, but it has been very helpful in helping us structure distance learning lessons for social studies. This piece is in the HyperDoc that you just saw, that I mentioned earlier. And then here is a summary of the 5 E's that you can look at on your own and help as you understand the basic structures of our lessons. So my name is Rebecca Valbuena. I've been teaching for 30 years and I am actually recently retired. So I taught 30 years in elementary school, particularly grades 3 and 5 and a year of kindergarten. And for the last 5 years, I have been a teacher on special assignment at the Glendora Unified School District, where I work with teachers and academic coaching. I've been a member of the CLIC team for the state of California, and I represent Region 11, which is the Los Angeles, Orange County region in the South. I am currently the president-elect of the California Council of Social Studies, so if you are not a member, look into it. I am also a board member of the National Council of the Social Studies, and when I'm not teaching at Glendora, I am also teaching at Cal Poly Pomona as a history methods instructor. So I have a lot of experience in history, social science, and I have authored all of the elementary lessons and will continue to add to them. So right now, each grade level has 2 or 3 lessons, and eventually there will be 5 model lessons. So keep checking back on our website to find future lessons in the coming days and weeks. The lesson that I'm going to share today for kindergarten is called Together We Learn. And as I mentioned earlier, the focus is Standard K.1, and it's understanding what it is to be a good citizen and that good citizens act in certain ways. So I'll walk you through that lesson in just a minute. We hope to address some of the challenges of distance learning, and especially with kindergartners, we know how difficult it is. We don't just ask 5-year-olds to log on. There's a lot going on for distance learning. And by now, since we've been doing this since March, I know most of you have your routines in place, but I'm hoping to give you a few pointers and maybe some new ideas, or at least validate some of the things that you're already doing that help you be successful with distance learning. We know that no matter where we're teaching, student engagement is key, and we'll share some ways that you can engage your students in distance learning that are simple and free of charge. So there's a lot of apps and different programs out there, but everything on the lessons that are on this website utilize things that are free and easy access. The lessons are relevant, and we hope to create that rigor and relevance and that magical place where students find their real learning happening, and that there are options for assessment throughout. And you can see exactly what your students know, because we know accountability is important, especially in times of distance learning. So our lesson overview, it addresses, all of the lessons addresses standard and the framework. We share integration with English language arts and ELD standards. And there are also options, or they're just pointed out. Some lessons have more than others and in different ways, but throughout the lessons, you will find integration in economics, geography, civics, social justice, social emotional learning, technology, VAPA, and STEM, math, science, LGBTQ+, history, etc. So wherever we have those natural integrations, it's pointed out within the lesson. So I'm going to take you to the lesson and give you a quick tour. It's going to pop up in just a second. So each lesson opens with our cover page, Bridging the Divide. And you will see as you scroll through it, the credentials and the people involved and the organizations involved, as well as the authors and reviewers. And then you find the lesson. So you'll have a lot of front matter in this blue section where you see the title of the lesson, the objective, the compelling question, which in this case is, how can we learn and work together? And compelling questions are intended to be open-ended so that students can answer them daily, and that each day that answer might change as they learn a little bit more. So that it's an overarching question that each part of the lesson, it stepstones them, up think of a staircase, right? It steps them up each lesson so that they can eventually answer that compelling question at the very end and answer it well. That gives you that there are 4 class sessions for synchronous learning and 4 class sessions for asynchronous learning. And these are approximations because it really just depends on the format of your class and your school and how long you have for synchronous learning. So it might change depending on your daily schedule. We have our standards and our framework, and then you can see a slew of Common Core ELA standards and English language development standards. Underneath that blue section is also our supporting questions. So these are the questions that students can answer. They're a little bit more closed, they're not open-ended, but at the end of particular lessons, students should be able to explain why are rules important, why are laws important, and also what is the Constitution. This lesson gives them exposure to that, which is a part of our standards. So the engage section, this is the part where we want to get kids interested. So we always have a literature piece because that's how kindergartners learn. In fact, that's how all elementary students have wonderful literature experiences. But in this case, I want you to see that everything is linked straight in the lesson. So to get kids interested, there's a read aloud of a story called No David. So when you click on this, I'm sure you know this story, but when you click on it, it goes straight away to a YouTube.
No David by David Shannon.
And you can watch that with your students during synchronous time. So this whole piece should take about 30 minutes, but you read the story together. If you want to read it yourself, great. If you have the book handy. If not, you can play the video. But the idea is to share that piece of literature and then lead a group discussion. So within the lesson are questions that directly relate to or guiding the students to think about rules and why they're important. So there's a list of questions here to help you with your class discussion during that synchronous time. In the asynchronous time, as students leave you that day, assign them to rewatch the story, the reading of No David. And then the question is, if David were to visit our virtual class, what's one rule he should follow? And the students are asked to draw a picture of David following that rule. So it's a very typical experience that we might give to our students in an in-person teaching experience. And then they come back the next day. There's an idea for formative assessment, which is just having them share their drawings. And as a teacher, you're looking, do they understand or not? And then you know whether you need to reteach or discuss more, or if you can move on. The explore section might be the next day. In this section, students will you open the class by having them share their drawings, or have volunteers share, or they could just hold them up, however it seems most appropriate to you. And then as in a class together on your Zoom meeting or on your Google Meet, or however you're meeting with your students for virtual class time, at synchronous time, you can brainstorm a list of rules that they might have for their classroom. Now, if you have already done this, because it's happened already earlier in the year, put those rules back up and take a look at them, because this is the idea that we want to revise and change as needed. But if you click on the brainstorm hyperlink, it just takes you to, has you make a copy so that we're not all working on the same document, but it takes you to a Jamboard. And Jamboard is free and part of the Google Suite, but you simply click on here to create a text box, or you can put a Post-it, and together as a class, they can see, if you share your screen, you can just brainstorm possible rules, or put your current rules up there and see if they need to be revised or amended. Then during asynchronous time, assign the children to watch another literature piece. This time it's nonfiction, and it's called Laws for Kids. It's also on YouTube. So this link just directly puts them there, and they're asked to draw a picture of one law mentioned in the book. And so the idea of formative assessment, they can hold up their picture or upload it to you in whatever format that you currently use and that's accessible to your students and your school district. The explain section, they share their drawing on the camera and they explain it out loud if you are comfortable or allowed to put them in breakout rooms. Small groups are fine too. It just depends what works best for you. In their asynchronous time for explaining, so they're explaining their drawings, they can share that same drawing with a family member, engage in a discussion with the family member, and note examples of rules and laws in and around their home and neighborhood. Another suggestion in the lesson is to role play rules and laws and the consequences. And that serves as a little SEL integration. Our formative assessment is that drawing with an explanation. To elaborate, we bring into the Constitution. So in this part of the lesson, which is during synchronous time, the following day or a different day, you would review the classroom rules, ask students to think about the rules, and then discuss, do any of them need to be changed, or should we add some? And this is particularly important if you have class rules already, your virtual class rules. We want to continually tell students that rules need to be relooked at all the time to see if they still meet our needs, to see if they still work. At this point, there are some primary sources linked to this lesson, a picture of the United States Constitution in its primary source state so they can see it. And then you will lead a discussion about the document. And then we have a painting, another primary source, which is in many of our upper grade textbooks, but kindergarten is a great time to let them see it and analyze it. With that also comes a little guide for you so that you can share with students the names of the people in the picture. So that might be a fun thing to do. And also you're sharing the document, but talking about the Constitution, explaining what it is, and helping students recognize that the Constitution, like our rules and laws of our classroom, can be changed over time. Your asynchronous, they will listen to the Constitution song, and we have a little VAPA integration there, and they can sing along and learn it, or create dance movements to it in their asynchronous time. And this is sort of a beautiful thing because we don't normally have the time necessarily to do that in class. But I think, as we move into continued distance learning, allow kids that time to have learner autonomy, but to really dive into some of the things that might be fun and interesting that we don't normally have time to do in class. They can also, as suggested in this lesson, take a virtual tour of the National Archives, which is hyperlinked right here. And that's just a really interesting and fun thing for them to do with their family members or even on their own. It's just a simple tour of the actual archives. Again, there's a formative assessment idea, and just asking students to recognize the Constitution and explain what it is. And then your evaluation piece, it gives you ideas in your synchronous time of what you can look for and what you can grade and use as assessment, and during your asynchronous time, what they produce that you can grade and look at. So that last piece is there. I'm hoping that that is exciting to you. It's a really strong series of ideas, and they flow well together. I hope that you give it a try, or at least that it's an idea seed for you to create some things on your own and maybe enjoy that format. Some final thoughts. The lessons have an intentional design, and they include those 5 E's. They have synchronous and asynchronous class time. And again, it's just a suggestion. You can try as is, or you can use it and adapt it to whatever meets your needs and your materials and equipment. It provides innovative ways to engage your students and give them choices through inquiry and project-based instruction. In this case, they're doing a lot of drawing and explaining their drawings. You can extend those into ideas of other projects as well. So your resources, all of the links to the history social science lessons can be found in the notes section of this video. And for more resources, and if you'd like to see the other grade level lessons, or you have friends that you can share it with, all of the resources are on a website called californiahss.org. And there are multiple resources on there, not just these lessons, but other things as well. So take a look there, and please share this with your colleagues. We thank you so much for listening today. I hope that everything goes well with you. Let us know how your lessons go, and if you've made some revisions that are exciting and interesting, please let us know. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the year.